This program was made possible by the grassroots volunteers of United Monroe.
Hello, I'm Emily Combert and welcome to this very special edition of Hello Hudson Valley. In this episode, we're going to be showing you highlights. We'll be talking about the different negative impacts of the annexation on the surrounding communities, and not just Monroe. If you live in Orange County, even if you live in Rockland County, this will affect you as well. So I hope you enjoy the show, and there will be many excellent speakers who spoke very eloquently on this very pressing issue in our region. Please be sure to check out our blog. We have a Blog Talk Radio program on blogtalkradio.com. It's called Stand Up Hudson Valley, and we air live every Sunday night at 7 p.m. We hope you'll tune in. Enjoy the show. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Dan Richmond. I'm a partner with the law firm of Zarin & Steinmetz. We represent United Monroe, which is a citizen group committed to transparent and open government. United Monroe clearly has no issue with the village residents themselves, many of whom are friends and very likely want to see the same fair and open government that United Monroe seeks. United Monroe takes issue with the village government, which improperly conceals its working from public scrutiny, blocks and disregards dissenting voices, sanctions poor development without regard for the public safety, welfare, and the environment. Clearly, ceding land to such a government is not in the public interest. The flawed and incomplete analysis in the DGEIS cannot justify the annexation. The DGEIS is flawed in many respects and appears cynically crafted to justify annexation without the required analysis of the serious adverse impact that would result. The DGEIS, for example, arbitrarily only assesses the potential impacts of annexation for the year 2025. This appears intended to avoid facing the critical issues that would arise after that date. Regardless of the motivation, by limiting analysis to just the next 10 years, the DGEIS deliberately avoids addressing the foreseeable impacts of annexation, including massive population increases, and that would likely occur if high-density housing development were allowed, as the village government would like. In any event, however, the DGEIS asserts that zoning in the town lands could be changed after annexation to allow high-density development is improper and illegal. By law, municipalities cannot use annexation to evade existing zoning laws. Moreover, as shown on this map, which I want to be clear was commissioned by the village government itself, the natural growth of the Hudson City community could be accommodated, it would appear, without annexation. This map, which again I want to emphasize was prepared by the village, commissioned by the village government, shows that there are over 3,000 acres of civic-owned property outside Curious Joel. The DGEIS fails to consider what development is allowed in these areas under existing zoning and whether it could accommodate the Hasidic community's natural growth. Perhaps more disturbingly, the DGEIS fails to explain why it is even necessary to expand the village government's jurisdiction to accommodate natural growth. The Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution prohibits religious states, and this is with good reason. They make bad government. As Monroe Town Supervisor William Rogers declared in 1976 on the original petition to incorporate the village, Curious Joel was created for the express purpose avoiding Monroe's zoning laws. 40 years later, it is not surprising the village has flouted its obligations ever since. The 3 minutes is obviously not enough time to comprehensively address the multiple substantial flaws in the DGEIS. Suffice it to say that violating the Constitution can never be in the overall public interest, particularly where it's here. It will result in the extension of the very sort of unresponsive and improper government that the Constitution was designed to protect against.
Dan Catcher, coming down in Tuxedo. I live downstream. I'm very happy to be able to make it here tonight. Unfortunately, the last meeting that was held was in an ice storm that to me was absurd to go along with the meeting. I made lots of phone calls that night. even calling the county executive. You know, Steve, how can they have this meeting? It's like, Dan, there's nothing I can do. I know it's crazy. Well, I have to tell you that it's a slap in the face to those of us here that are really concerned about the environment and what's going on, that you held the meeting at a time when you knew no one could come. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I believe that. I think they meant it when they wrote it. When we look at the services that you're looking to have provided for you. I have a daughter. I have a nice big piece of land in the town of Tuxedo. I would love to have my daughter be able to build a house next to mine. We have 2 acres at the end of a dead-end street. I'd love to have the town subdivide my property for me and allow me to build a house. But you know what? There's nothing that's special about me that the town of Tuxedo should let me subsidize my property against all of the zoning. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about you either. There's nothing special about any of us. We're all created equal. It's not up to the government to decide how we're going to provide these services in areas that aren't part of the town, how we're going to pull in areas into the annexation area. The Ramapo River is not anti-Semitic. The Ramapo River doesn't care where the effluent comes from. The people who live in Mawa and Rockland County, the people whose wells are recharged by the Ramapo River, don't care where the effluent came from. The river simply cannot hold any more effluent. You cannot put any more in the river. Finally, we bring up lots of very brave young ladies to come up and speak like this. I'm very, very impressed, very proud of them. These people that want to have their properties annexed.
30 seconds.
First, I'd like to know what the response was from the town board when you asked them to put in sidewalks and lights. What was the vote? You know, I'd like to know how you guys voted for that. Or when you asked them to provide police services, how they voted for that. Also, the people who stand to make millions of dollars because they bought a piece of property that was zoned for one family, and now they'll be able to build an apartment building and condos and sell those properties. Why don't they talk about that? Thank you.
My name is Elsie Stepanoff, and I've lived in the village of Monroe for almost 10 years. I too come from a family that lived in the shtetls and Jewish ghettos of Eastern Europe. My grandparents came to this country at the start of the last century, looking to escape that harsh life and the pogroms led by Tsarist thugs against Jewish communities. They left behind many friends and relatives who were later destroyed by the Nazi Holocaust during World War II. I grew up with the stories of their lives in the old country and the horrors of the death camps that they were lucky enough to escape. When they came here, however, they were not welcomed with open arms. Rather, like all immigrant groups before them and after them, they faced discrimination. There were neighborhoods that they could not live in, schools and colleges they could not attend, clubs they could not join, and more. This kind of discrimination and downright hatred exhibited by some people in our society is not directed just at Jews. Many people considered different by the majority are subjected to the same restrictions and worse. Racism and anti-Semitism and anti-other in general is still too much a part of our society.
Yes.
So I grew up learning to work towards civil liberties for all people, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, etc. That is what my grandparents worked for, and my parents, and my children as well. Now I find myself being called anti-Semitic because I oppose annexation of all land into the village of Kiryas Joel. I reject that accusation with my whole being. I am not anti-Hudson. What I am against is the existence of a theocratic government within this country founded on freedom of religion. Isn't that why the Pilgrims came here? Isn't that why my grandparents came here? My guess is that's why the Saffrons came here. It is clear that I am not welcome in Kiryas Joel as a resident. Even as a visitor, I am told by a sign at the entrance how to dress, who to talk to and who not to touch. These signs say to me, go away, you are not wanted here. There are many Hasidim living outside the confines of Kiryas Joel, but I know of no one living within KJ who is not Hasidic. That is discrimination. That infringes on my rights to live where I want and practice my moral principles as I see fit. Finally, as I understand the Constitution of the U.S. and New York State, no government shall establish or favor one religion over another, or none at all. The protection of people's rights to worship as they wish does not mean that the rest of the community has to give up their own rights. We, too, are meant to be free to live in an area we have chosen with a strong public school system and a great diversity of healthy environment. It is not anti-Semitism that inspires my opposition to the annexation, but rather the total disregard of the rights of those and have my children live in this area.
Segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregator a false sense of superiority and the segregated a false sense of inferiority. Martin Luther King Jr. The difference between de jure and de facto segregation is the difference between open, forthright bigotry and the shamefaced kind that works through unwritten agreements between real estate dealers, school officials, and local politicians. Shirley Chisholm. She was an African-American congresswoman representing New York's 12th Congressional District for 7 terms from 1969 to 1983. These quotes, of course, relate to the segregation which occurred in the United States prior to and in the midst of the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. Here I stand today in Kiryas Joel, wondering why our local politicians are ready to allow real estate developers and KJ leaders to further the cause for segregation right here in Monroe. Religion is being used as a reason for this, and religion is being used as a weapon against the non-Satmar in our community. Replace the term non-Satmar with blacks, and you will understand the meaning of the discrimination the people of Monroe are feeling today. Mayor Weeder and Mr. Segedin were in Albany last week, fighting against the 2 annexation bills which were passed in the Assembly this week. These bills would allow for more environmental oversight in the annexation process. Mayor Weeder delivered a letter to each Assembly member inviting them to come and visit and understand the culture of KJ. In his letter, Mayor Weeder suggested that because of the culture of KJ and the need for young married couples to live near their mothers, Weeder was simply working to accommodate his people. What does your culture have to do with disobeying the laws of the land? Nowhere in state annexation law does culture or religion come into play, nor should it. It's not your job as the mayor of the municipality to provide for the religious or cultural needs of your citizens. Your job is to create good government, to keep your roads safe and clean, to balance your budget, to follow the law of the land, the laws of the New York State Constitution and the Constitution of the United States. KJ the Village, ironically, was formed not long after the Civil Rights Movement and after segregation ended. Since then, the Village of KJ leaders have been actively carving out what the leaders themselves refer to as a holy city, consisting of only people of one color, one faith. This institutionalized segregation is illegal. And those of us who are not born into this faith, this color, this culture, must stand aside, move aside, and succumb to the wishes of the power brokers who are orchestrating these land grabs. Withdraw the annexation petitions for the sake of those people who live, work, love, survive, and breathe around you. Withdraw the annexation petitions for the good of your own citizens who suffer more than you may ever know from this segregation and an extreme lack of education which would allow your citizens to become more productive members of society. I'll leave you with a quote from Maya Angelou. In so many ways, segregation shaped me, and education liberated me.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is James Skoufis, and I represent the 99th District in the New York State Assembly. Let me first say, village officials, I know you and your lobbyists have spent the past weeks feverishly working to defeat legislation that would bring accountability to this annexation process. I'm proud to say that I serve in the Assembly because this week we did the right thing and overwhelmingly passed it. A top priority and is working very hard to pass them in his chamber before the legislature recesses. Let me speak about this annexation process that the village of Curious Joel has conducted. To start, is this public hearing for the 164-acre petition or the 507-acre petition? How are both of these public hearings happening at the same time? To make it very clear for the record, you have given every person here a wholly inadequate 90 seconds to comment on each of these two petitions, not 3 minutes. Likewise, here we are tonight, and it is a sham that we are holding such a critical public hearing at a venue with a few dozen parking spaces outside. It is a sham that an important scoping session was held in the middle of an ice storm. Yes. And this DGEIS is a sham from beginning to end for projecting population a mere 10 years out, totally ignoring any build-out of the proposed annexed land, effectively ignoring sewer capacity issues, and presenting a suspect, if not illegal, plan for water using the Mountainville well field. But let me reflect on the biggest sham of all for the transcript, and likely the judge that will ultimately read the transcript of this hearing. Curious Joel officials have steadfastly maintained that these proposed annexations were independently driven by homeowners and landowners, and that the village government is an unbiased actor and has no control over the petitions. Yet, one of, if not the biggest landowner involved in the petitions is Vaj Akirya, the development arm of the village's governing faction. This is the same development company that was established by former village trustee and both planning and zoning board chairman Meyer Hirsch. This is also the same company that current village mayor Weeder was the president of in the 1990s. Make no mistake, this is all about rezoning, all about Vaj Akirya making lots of money for a select few that run the village government, and all about paying for a water pipeline loan that Curious Joel cannot otherwise afford to pay back.
30 seconds.
These annexations have been orchestrated from start to finish by Curious Joel's government and have nothing to do with independent homeowners or, from the perspective of the village, the overall public interest. If either of these annexations proceed, town and village board members, you will find yourselves in court at great taxpayer expense. And I predict you will lose. So I ask that you not take us down that perilous road and reject both annexation petitions. Once the petitions are rejected, I'll submit the rest for written comments. Thank you.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please get down to the speaker.
Black's Law Dictionary defines arbitrary and capricious as a willful and unreasonable action without consideration or in disregard of facts or law without determining principle. The Supreme Court of the United States of America ruled on several occasions that a constitutional power cannot be used by way of condition to attain an unconstitutional result. I mention these two principles because an abundance of case law speaks against the annexation of 507 or 164 acres from the town of Monroe into Curious Joel. So much that even the most reckless and irresponsible of our municipal board members should find trouble voting in favor of either. Quite notably, the United States Supreme Court overturned an annexation of predominantly African American populated areas out of the city of Tuskegee in 1960. Why? Because the state of Alabama abused its constitutional power to alter municipal boundaries in order to deny African Americans their right to vote under the 15th Amendment. Justice Whitaker, in a compelling concurring opinion, noted that the fencing of Negro citizens out of one municipality and into another is an unlawful segregation of races of citizens in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. This is why the annexation map of 507 acres looks like a jigsaw puzzle with several pieces missing. The chaotic boundaries of an expanded KJ are all about ethnicity and religion. Residents inside the map include names such as Goldberger, Brock, Weeder, Freund, Oppenheim. Names outside the map include those such as Cruz, Colon, Dam, Vargas, Olivieri, non-white ethnic minorities. Also included are names such as Buckley, O'Driscoll, Fisher, Dobrowski, and Allegro, soon to be part of a non-Satmar minority, living in disparate islands which are part of, yet detached from the unincorporated town of Monroe. Why are non-Satmar residences not part of the original petition and map? When taking all circumstances into consideration, the answer is quite clear. The annexation petition and map were deliberately designed to keep ethnic minorities and non-Satmars from exercising their rights to vote in a referendum, the final act of approval for annexation to New York State. This is an action that would impact their properties, qualities of lives, and children's educations forever. And the ethnic minorities and non-Satmars were deliberately gerrymandered out of the right to participate in local government.
Time is up, Mr.
The orchestration. So I'd like to put it on the record that Mr. Barshop had all the time he wanted for testimony. His testimony should not be any more important than anybody else's.
Good evening. My name is Krista Yakabone, and I'm also an attorney for the law firm of St. Steinmetz representing United Monroe. Respectfully, both the 507-acre petition and 164-acre petition contain multiple fatal flaws and wholly fail to comply with Article 17 of the General Municipal Law. First, both petitions violate the GML requirement that all persons signing it be qualified to do so. There are various alleged business organizations that sign the petitions, but that are not active or valid corporations formed under the state business corporation law, not-for-profit corporation law, or religious corporation law. United Monroe's written submission makes specifically identified which business organizations are invalid. Both petitions should be dismissed for failing to obtain valid qualified signatures. Second, both petitions fail to substantially comply in form or content with GML Article 17, and that they both fail to sufficiently describe the territory proposed for annexation. For example, Exhibit A of the 507-acre petition contains a description for 164 parcels, whereas Exhibit C to the 507-acre petition contains 177 parcels. There are also similar discrepancies in the 164-acre petition. It is impossible for your boards to consider the petitions when it's not even clear what territory is being proposed for annexation, let alone possible for your boards to approve an annexation with the petitions as they are currently drafted. Both petitions must be dismissed. The petitions fail to substantially comply in form or content with the GML in many other ways. First, as United Monroe has previously pointed out, either annexation would violate the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution, and so would constitute an improper delegation of political power based on religious criteria. Second, approving the petitions would cause the Monroe Town Board members to violate the Town Code standard of ethics. As United Monroe has also previously pointed out, the code specifically establishes that causing voluntary segregation is not in the public interest, and explicitly prevents town board members and employees from causing voluntary segregation. As such, any action to promote the voluntary segregation of a particular religious group, like approving the annexation, would violate the code and subject board members to potential disciplinary action under the code. The form and content of the petition is further flawed because the village government is clearly attempting to misuse the annexation process to change zoning in the relative territory and avoid the town's current zoning, which, as Dan stated previously, is improper under New York law. Furthermore, the 507 petition in particular would result in highly irregular, jagged borders between the town and the village. Such baroque boundaries have been condemned by the New York courts. Furthermore, as the DGEIS makes clear, approving the annexation would result in unregulated high-density development, which is certainly not in the public interest. The village itself has publicly told New York State that annexation lands could alone accommodate 8,550 new residents.
Time is up.
Thank you for asking.
Michael Egan, over 30-year resident of the town of Monroe. This confrontation is not about religion, and everybody here tonight who tried to make it that way should be ashamed of themselves. What it is about is a class of aspirations. On the one hand, the leadership and developers of the village of Curious Joel want unlimited access to water, sewer, and land to enable unlimited population growth. The expectation is that much of the cost will be borne by the taxpayers of the county and the state, and the preservation of the environment has no place in the list of considerations. On the other hand, the rest of the town of Monroe aspires to preserve the natural beauty and rural character of the land, the high-quality school district, single-family homes, and a sustainable level of taxes. That's the class of aspirations. Now, as we all know, the takeover of the East Ramapo School District by the school district's board was done to reduce taxes by gutting the district's programs. And although this benefits the one group who sends its kids to private school, it is undeniably not in the public interest for the rest of the town's citizens that use the public schools. Like East Ramapo takeover, an annexation of land from Monroe will benefit just one group. It would enable them to achieve their aspiration of unlimited growth. However, again, like East Ramapo, the result would be the gutting of the aspirations of the rest of the town's citizens as they watch the woods cut down and paved over, their taxes rise to pay for the cost of the new population, their school district threatened by the thousands of voters who don't use the schools. Just as obviously as the East Ramapo takeover, it is not in the public interest. The annexation of town land from Monroe to Curious Joel is also not in the public interest. And Mr. Dole, your public statements of the last 2 weeks seem to indicate that you're wavering on your long-standing support of the 507-acre annexation. Do not think for 1 minute this will provide you cover to vote for and push through the 164-acre annexation instead. That would only serve PJ's aspirations, and it will not serve the rest of the town's citizens. And obviously it is not in the public interest. You said ultimately this is an issue of water.
Time is up. Thank you, Mr. Egan.
And sewage.
Mr. Egan, thank you very much.
Don't forget
Thank you very much.
that you and all of you will ultimately vote
We appreciate
and
it.
decide the annexation. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Steve Welly. I've been a resident of the Village of Harron for the past 38 years and have served on the village board since 1997. I've been the mayor since 2001. Having lived in the area for 38 years and through my experience on the village board, I have several major concerns, and I am adamantly opposed to the proposed unsustainable 507 and 164-acre annexation from the town of Monroe into the village of Curious Joel. I'm also under the opinion that this public hearing is illegal due to the fact that the court has not ruled on the sequence events of the 3 annexations, the proposed 507 and 164-acre from town of Monroe into Curious Joel, and the proposed 336-acre annexation into South Blooming Road. New York State General Municipal Law, Section 239 and LM&N, require that certain land use actions being reviewed under local zoning, site plan, and subdivision regulations be referred to a county planning agency for review and comment on aspects of the proposal that are of countywide or intermunicipal significance. The village of Curious Joel has a history of consistently ignoring these Section 239 reviews, which are required of all municipalities. This shows their complete lack of respect and caring for the surrounding communities.